All right, we're talking about Super Freaks, if you recognize the song. Well, politicians distort the truth all the time, but scientists are not supposed to do that. Still, it does happen. Stalin used to demand results from scientists that weren't supported by evidence, and of course Hitler did the same, but surely we are above that, aren't we? Well, it can't happen here, as many people have said, but apparently it has. New emails from global warming theorists appear to show that they have been covering up evidence that the Earth isn't warming as much as they thought it was. In fact, it might actually be cooling a bit. Furthermore, there's not as much evidence that man is responsible for climate change as has been claimed by Al Gore and others. But the evidence for that, too, has been distorted. Shocking allegations that could affect discussions at the upcoming climate summit in Copenhagen. For details of how it all shakes out, let's turn to the co-author of the super best-selling book, Super Freakonomics, Stephen Dubner. Stephen, great to see you. Thanks, David. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Let's just read one of the emails that was discovered as a result of this great detective work on the part of science. If we can put up B13 email, this was an email from Kevin Trenberth. He's a climatologist at the National Center for Atmospheric Research. They believe in global warming quite a bit. He says, the fact is that we cannot account for the lack of warming at the moment, and it is a travesty that we can't. Now, it's because of emails like this that suspicions have begun to mount that maybe they buried evidence suggesting that global warming didn't fit the computer models.
Yeah, well, let me start by saying that the emails were hacked. So just so we know, someone either wanted to get in there because they knew there was something that, should be read, or maybe there's a whistleblower. At this point, we really don't know. So all these emails and other documents got released, and what it seems to show is, as your email shows, first of all, you'll find out how I feel about this issue, but just for the sake of devil's advocacy for a moment, it is tough to say from one email or from 10 emails what's really going on. What seems to be going on, however, if you read these emails, is that there is a group of scientists who supported each other's work that reported to the IPCC and which formed the basis.
The IPCC is that UN organization
Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change.
We should get massively government involved in stopping global warming.
Right. So what you've got are a group of scientists who have become very potent, really, at telling this UN body how it wants to tell governments around the world to deal with climate, to deal with carbon, to deal with energy, and so on. And it seems as though these guys are colluding among each other to, A, make their findings be right for their position, but B, even more troubling if you're a scientist or a fan of science, is to keep out the dissenters. So you can say anything you want about scientists wanting to advocate for what they think is right, but when you're dealing with peer-reviewed journals and the guys who publish these journals having the podium to tell Al Gore what to say, to tell the UN what to say, and those guys are keeping out dissenters, and they're working with federal tax money.
But we know that Al Gore is trying to keep out dissenters. He has refused to debate anybody on the issue, and there are some real distinguished scientists who don't believe in global warming.
It's true. We make the point in Super Freakonomics, a few very basic points about global warming. The models that seem to predict calamity
are computer models that a lot of the policy that the UN advocates are based on.
Right. Are A, full of uncertainty. Predicting the future in any realm is hard.
We're full of something else.
Well, I'll let you fill in that blank. The other part is this. They seem to conform quite a bit. There seems to be what a lot of scientists like to call the consensus. The problem is there are other scientists who argue that this consensus is really false and that what it represents is everybody's scared to be an outlier, everybody's scared to be a skeptic because they won't get funding unless they produce research that kind of supports the global...
Well, bottom line, we got to cut to the chase. Who do you think is doing what to the evidence? I mean, do you think that supporters of global warming and the UN are distorting evidence to prove their point?
Distorting evidence, probably yes. To what degree, we don't really know yet. We're going to find out a lot more about it. Here's what I think.
But doesn't, to any degree, discredit their theories?
Yeah, you can't.
Because you can't if something has been made up, you can't rely on anything else.
You can't read these emails and feel that the IPCC or the major climate scientists' findings and predictions about global global warming are kosher. You can't. They may be, but if you read these, you have to have a whole lot of skepticism about that. And of course, coming into Copenhagen now, these are going to have a big effect on how the world looks at it. They're going to say, wait a minute, you say these climate scientists have been telling us we got to stop burning fossil fuel tomorrow.
Well, particularly in light of the fact we are on the cusp of spending $1 trillion in a cap and trade program that the House has already approved here. I mean, most Americans are already questioning this, but in light of these email memos that show the computer model's wrong, we don't want to spend $1 trillion for that.
Well, we in Super Freakonomics, we say that, but then we go a step further and say, even if you cut all your carbon, even if we could go to a zero carbon society overnight, which of course is impossible, it's probably not going to address warming if indeed warming is bad enough to worry about. The reason why is that carbon dioxide turns out to not be perhaps the thing that we should be worrying about most in terms of warming.
The thing that's worse than car exhaust is...
Well, we write about, ruminants, believe it or not.
We write about cows.
Sheep.
And let's just put it up on the air. The exhalation and flatulence and belching with manure emit methane, put that up on the screen, which by one common measure, 25 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than the carbon dioxide released by cars.
This is true. So if you really want to save the planet, you got to either, you got to learn to love the kangaroo, eat the kangaroo. The kangaroo does not emit methane, so if we all ate that. But the point...
Hold on a second. I mean, kangaroo, and forgive me, everybody, hide the kids, put covers over the kids' ears. Kangaroo farts don't have methane?
They're clean. It has to do with the bacterial system. So what Australian scientists are now trying to do, you're like this. They're trying to say, well, if cows emit all this methane, which is a greenhouse gas, and kangaroos don't, what if we can't get people to eat kangaroos, what if we could transfer the bacterial, digestive bacteria from cows' stomachs from kangaroo stomachs into cows and make them, methane free? But the point is this, carbon mitigation as a plan to stop global warming, even if you devoutly believe that global warming is the biggest problem we've ever faced, won't work. It won't work because it's too little, it's too late, and it's too optimistic. It's also very expensive, and it also depends on governments and people around the world to change their behavior when it goes against their economic self-interest.
If we all became vegetarians, we could do a lot more for releasing these gases.
Than driving a Prius, for instance. Absolutely. You could drive a Prius. If a Prius makes you feel good, absolutely. But just know that if you drive the Prius to the supermarket to buy some hamburger, you're canceling yourself out many times over.
Many, many facts such as these are to be had in Super Freakonomics. You and your co-author Stephen Levitt, by the way, is top of the charts now, right?
We're doing all right, yeah.
You're selling it well.
Yeah.
It's a great stocking stuffer. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, David.
And we want to know what you think. ClimateGate. Is this proof that man-made global warming theory is a fraud? If you believe it is, it's a buy. If you don't, it's a sell. Or if you're not sure, it's a hold. Text your answer to 369-249. Your answers later in the show.